the UFO Connection. I'm Cynthia Siegel. We have an incredible show today. We have three very special guests with us to talk about the Travis Walton abduction case, the famous case that was turned into a movie many of you are familiar with called Fire in the Sky. In the studio with us today, we have Dr. James Harder, very well known close encounter investigator and hypnotist who worked on the case along with many other famous UFO abduction cases, as well as live by phone we have Travis Walton himself and Mike Rogers, the crew chief that was present at the time of the event. So please join me in welcoming these very special guests. Dr. Harder, thank you so much for being on our show today. We're very honored by having you here.
I'm glad to be here and also to be able to talk with Travis.
Yes, you go back very far with them, don't you?
Well, what you call it, 27 years.
Yes. Yes, this event took place on November 5th, 1975. Now let's let the audience get to know you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I was interested in UFOs from an early time, but unlike most people who concentrated principally on whether UFOs are real, and there's some people who are still working on that now.
Yes.
But the most important thing is to understand not that UFOs are real, but that they are real and there's a much behind them. There are societies out in the galaxy that we need to know more about. They've been around for hundreds of thousands of years, and they've developed societies very different from ours, and probably a lot more successful.
So you're not just interested in a hardware. In spite of your engineering background, you are much more interested in the people, the society, the culture, the philosophy of who is behind this.
Those are the things that people should be concerned with.
Yes.
The technology, we're not going to get higher technology from the extraterrestrials. They wouldn't give us higher technology when they're very sure that we just make bigger and better bombs. We already have more technology than we know how to handle.
Now, tell us about your background, though. It's to me, I find your background interesting. What is your formal degree and specialization in, actually?
I studied mechanical engineering at Caltech, and I was a couple of years in soil conservation service. I came back to the University of California, where I worked for a while with Professor Hans Albert Einstein, and I got my PhD there. And just at that time, luckily for me, somebody was not given tenure, and they had nobody to hire except me in his place.
So you have been a UC Berkeley professor in the engineering department.
Ever since 1976, ever since 57.
Oh my goodness, almost 45 years.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Now, how in heaven's name did an engineer at UC Berkeley get involved in UFOs? Where did this all begin? You were part of a very important UFO organization.
Oh yes, I was the director of research for the Aerial Phenomenon Research Organization.
Also known as APRO.
APRO, that's right. The one group that had an interest in close encounters at that time, as opposed to most of the other organizations that were still very interested in proving that UFOs were real.
Yes, that's true.
Now, Travis's case was a very important one because next to Betty Hill was one that got a certain degree of attention it might not have had. Now, Travis's experience was not the happy one that you might expect, but on the other hand, I think it was due to the fact that it was a group that was not experienced dealing with humans. I don't think they didn't do him any harm. On the other hand, they didn't keep him from being afraid. Most advanced UFO groups will very carefully adjust your psychology so that you're not afraid, believe it or not.
Yes. Well, we had Betty Hill on the show recently, and you actually were the main hypnotist. After her case, she and Barney Hill worked very closely with a medical hypnotist.
That's right.
And you, after they stopped with him, you worked with them for many years.
That's right. I think he got tired of them. Well, he got tired of being asked about him.
Okay, that makes sense. Right. Yes, there was a lot of notoriety. You worked on some other very famous cases as well.
Well, quite a few, yes.
The Pascagoula case?
Well, that's that one that got a lot of attention. But most of the important ones that I've worked on have had a lot of interest for me, and I think a lot of interest for most people, but they don't get published. It's not a popular thing.
No. How many cases would you say you worked on?
Oh, hundreds.
Yeah.
Maybe 200, 300, 400.
Well, I think whoever you worked with is very lucky because having known you, you are a very kind, compassionate person, and I think that in a very difficult situation such as this, it's nice to be with someone who is going to take care for them and show respect.
No, the fact is that most people have a positive feeling toward the UFO, especially if they get past the initial fear.
Yes.
They recognize that these are people who love them, who are concerned about them, who are concerned about the Earth. They can't do very much, but they're certainly worried about us. And they're worried and concerned about people. Remarkably idealistic, the extraterrestrials are for the most part. Not all of them, but for the most part. And
so now you stepped in and became involved in the Travis Walton case. How soon after Travis came back? We'll go, what that means is he was missing for a while. We'll
I think it was the
later.
second day that I got to Tucson. And Travis had been sort of saved from the public by our APRO organization, and he was being, and we were being supported by the National Enquirer. Now, I don't think very many people realize the National Enquirer was so concerned about whether that was a good case or not that they went to many steps. And afterwards, they were not sure that they wanted to publish, and they didn't.
See, now that's fascinating because nowadays when people think of the National Enquirer, they think they'll print anything, and not only anything, they'll make up stories or exaggerate.
Well, at that time, they had a committee of 5 of us who they inquired about. And, I think they took our point of view. In fact, the next year, Travis realizes that the committee of 4 or 5, had a $5,000 reward that we made every year to the person or the people who made the best contribution to UFO information. And we awarded it to Travis and his associates.
Oh, the crew.
Much to the, I think, to the chagrin of National Enquirer, they lost not only the $5,000, but all of the investigation, and they didn't get anything out of it.
So that's very good. Well, I know, I'm sure it hardly began to make up for all the...
Travis, you remember the $2,500 you got?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, that came much later, and it came as a surprise. It wasn't anything that the Enquirer offered to us for the cooperation or anything.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You got it on the basis of our recommendation of our committee.
Yeah.
Now, Travis, you never were seeking publicity for this or money or, you know, to become famous. This is something, from what I understand, that was just thrust on you in a really unwelcome way.
Yeah, most certainly.
Okay. So I just, the only reason I'm pointing that out is I don't want anybody in the audience to say, oh, well, you know, it's to shed some skepticism on this case just because you got a little bit of money out of that. I know for anybody who takes the time to read your books, you have 2 books, don't you?
Yes.
Okay, anybody who takes time to read your books or to hear you lecture, it is very obvious that you are not at all interested in fame or glory out of this. Why don't we spend some time actually bringing the audience up to speed now who are not familiar with this case, or maybe they just remember it generally, but they can't remember the details very well. And we also have on the phone, the voice you just heard was Travis Walton, but we also have Mike Rogers on the phone, who, and maybe Mike and Travis, you could tell us about what happened. Just start from where you are, what you were doing there, and how the event began.
Who do you want to actually have start?
Well, Mike,
well,
why don't...
Mike's contract, why don't we have him?
Okay, Mike, why don't you start this? Tell people who you are. You were and your role in this?
Well, I was the foreman. Actually, my contract with the Forest Service at the time. In '75, we had a large contract out there, and I had several men working for me, Travis and 5 others, Alan Dallas, John Gillette, Ken Peterson, Steve Pierce, and a very tall fellow named Dwayne Smith.
And where was this, where was your contract for? What region of the country, so people can get oriented?
Well, it was right up on top of the Mogollon Rim in almost central Arizona. Actually, it's northern Arizona, northeastern technically, but very close to the center of Arizona geographically.
In a very large, tall mountain range. I wandered in there by mistake one day, and it took me about 6 hours to get out the other side. I thought it was going to be a half-hour drive. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. It's a big mountain.
It's huge, absolutely
and, you know, we have, I believe I heard that it was the largest stand of ponderosa pine of any state in the United States. So even though Arizona is viewed by a lot of people back east as being a desert state, in reality only half of the state, or about half of it, is desert, and it very abruptly goes upward from about the halfway point up from 1,000-foot elevation to the 6, 7, 8, even 9,000-foot elevation, and basically the upper half of the state is a tall timbered mountain of sprawl. So this is where we were working, and we were working close to a town called Heber, which is just about 35 miles, I believe, from Snowflake, which would be 35 miles to the east of Heber. And then we were working about 10 to 12 miles south of Heber. Heber's on the edge of the forest in a low area down off the rim, and we're working up on the mountain there, about 7,500 feet, I believe, right in there.
Okay. So you were actually leaving that day at the end of a very tiring, hard work day, and you and the crew were driving in your truck to leave to go off the mountain to head home. So,
right.
So what happened as you were driving home? What time of the day would you say it was?
Well, it was when we actually left the job, the sun had already gone down. In fact, it had been down for 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay.
So there was still a little red in the sky, very little, from the sunset. And I remember there being a very thin sliver of a moon visible just a little ways above where the sun had set. So it got very dark very quickly. But I don't remember the exact time. It was that time of year, November 5th.
Okay.
It was